Hey y'all, happy Mother's Day and
Y'all.
welcome back to another video. We're going to be answering more questions today.
And it's Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You told your mama Happy Mother's Day?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I told her yesterday too.
You did?
I'm on top of the game.
Hey. I hear you. All right, we're going to get started. We're going to go ahead and go into YouTube and take a look. By the way, for all you mamas out there, Happy Mother's Day to you.
Yeah.
And
You
anyway.
guys have a really hard job.
Oh, being a mom.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Imagine if they had a son like Jesse. I got a little boy that's like a pinball in a game. He's just bing, 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 bing all over the place. Mm-hmm. And, me and my wife should have had him when we was in our 20s. Anyway, let's go ahead and pull up some YouTube comments here, and let's get this thing started. All right, you want to read this first comment? This is from, is that Drew Shark Power? Drew Shark Power.
They said, I live in San Antonio and learning as much as I can about beardies and now euros before I offer my... Wait, what? Hold on.
And now euros before
Okay.
I offer myself to be adopted by one.
I grew up in the Florida Keys with wild/tame iguanas and king snakes. My question to you is this: if I use local ground elements like rock, sand, gravel, how would I sanitize/sterilize it? I believe in well ventilated environments. How clever are each as far as being escape artists? Screen gauge. Can you? Sorry, there's a line right there.
Thank you for
insightful education and very entertaining information. I am learning so much and feel more and more confident in this devotion.
All right, well, we're going to have to break this down into one line at a time, I think, the best way to answer this. So he says he lives in San Antonio. He's learning as much as he can about beardies and now uromastics. I'm going to go ahead and be honest with you right off the bat. I do not know how to answer any questions on uromastics, simply because that is a species I have never worked with. I have never really had an interest in euros, and I think most of them that are available in the pet trade today are wild-caught imports. And, I know at some point in time, every animal that we worked with in captivity was wild-caught and imported, or at least wild-caught. But, I don't really like to... I don't really like to purchase animals that are wild caught, simply because we have a rather large reptile collection. I don't want to bring in disease. So as far as yours go, really don't know. But he said, my question to you is this: if I use local ground element, rock, sand, and gravel, how would I go about sterilizing it? Now, you know how we've done this in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there's several different options you can use for bedding, substrate, whatever. You can use paper towels, you can use newspaper. But if you want to use something a little bit more natural looking, the dragon cages that are behind us, we're using...
cypress mulch.
Yeah, cypress mulch. And honestly, I'll use it for about a month, and I'll usually just pick out, the dirty spots of the bedding, and then after a while you can just scoop it all up and then put brand new bedding in there so that it's nice and fresh.
Yeah, just
That's
spot cleaning.
really all we do.
Spot cleaning is needed, and then we replace it about once a month. The question, though, he's asking is, how do you go about sterilizing this rock, sand, and gravel? And I'm going to tell you, if you're getting this from outside, the best way for me to tell you to sterilize it, simply put it into a container, stick it in the oven at about 250 to 300 degrees, leave it in there for about 15 minutes. Any kind of insect or things like that should be killed off in that amount of time. If you only have a small pan to put rocks in and you have a big aquarium, it could get a little tedious, but that would probably be my recommendation, is simply put your rocks, put your stuff in the oven. You can even do this with like the driftwood. You can stick it in the oven for about 200 degrees, leave it in there for 15, 20 minutes. Make sure you don't bake it.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't want it to catch on fire if you're using driftwood. That sounds like something Phil Billy would do.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's what I would recommend. Now, what else did he say? He said, I believe in well-ventilated environments, and that's good. Especially when it comes to bearded dragons. The more well-ventilated your environment is, the higher humidity that those dragons can tolerate.
Yeah, he asked how clever they are as far as being escape artists.
Very.
With bearded dragons, well, they can't climb glass or plastic, so if they're getting out of the cage, it's probably because they're climbing on their climbing branches that you put in there, and then they're finding a way to jump out. So having a lid, like the lids on the cages behind us, keep the dragons from getting out. But if you have very tall cages and your climbing branches take up about maybe like a third to half of that height, then you really don't have to worry about it. But yeah, some of them more so than others. I feel like my females, for some reason, they're a little bit more lazy and they don't really like to climb and try to get out of the cages. But the two males we have back here will jump out of almost anything. So
that's because them two males is trying to get to where them females are.
Trying to get to the females. And if I didn't put like a divider in between our cages, then that's all they would be doing all day, is just trying to figure out how to get to the female. So they have little boards on the sides of their cages so they can't even see any other dragons because they'll be too easily distracted.
Well, you know how us fellows are. I mean, anyway, well, listen, I hope that answers your question. Drew, is it Drew Shark?
Drew Shark Power.
Drew Shark Power. We hope we answered your question, and thank you for watching our videos. This next one is from Robin. Is that Mayfield?
Robin Mayfield. He said, "How do I know if my beardy has stuck shed, or is just the color of tail citrus?" The color of tail has been shed twice, but not the bottom of the tail. Also, can I use deer antler in a dragon tank?
All right, so he's got two questions. How do I know my beard has stuck shed or just the color of the tail? You know what? This right here is something that I have seen a lot of people, and again, I don't want to feel like I'm beating up on veterinarians, but I've even heard people say, you know, my veterinarian diagnosed my dragon with tail rot. And then you look at the dragon and you're like, this dragon doesn't have tail rot. This dragon simply has a little bit of dry skin, probably due to dehydration, stuck on the tail. Once you soak that dragon, take your fingernails and just scrape a little bit, you'll start to see that old skin come off. But so many people worry about tail rot, and not to deny that tail rot is an issue, but I don't believe it's nowhere near the issue that the internet makes it out to be. Most of the time, it's simply stuck shed. The way to tell it is, once again, wet it, moisten it. You can use a washcloth. You could use a spray bottle. You can even give the dragon a soak. Take your fingernail and just kind of scrape down the side of the tail. If it's old shed skin, it's going to start to come away, kind of like a sunburn will.
Mm-hmm. You might have to soak them a couple of times before that shed really comes off. And also, some people, I actually have answered a couple of DMs before. I have had people mistake just simply the colored tint of the tip of the tail, because sometimes dragons are really dark towards the end, and some people think that that's tail rot, but it literally is just their pattern. It gets darker as you get to the tip. So some of that could just be the coloration of the dragon and not necessarily tail rot.
All right, we get that one. Let's go to the next one.
Hang on, he asked about deer antlers.
Oh, deer antlers. I like deer antlers.
Mm-hmm. We have deer antlers in the shop for decoration. So
as far as putting them in a cage, again, just like we told the first person that made a comment or asked a question on this video, make sure you disinfect them. You can take those deer antlers, simply put them in an oven, turn it on about 200 degrees, leave them in there for 10 or 15 minutes. Most effective way. The other way to do it, very, very simply leave those deer antlers outside in natural sunlight for a day, and then bring them in, put them in your cage. I don't think you're going to have to worry about anything as far as that goes. Just make sure that they're clean antlers. They don't have any rotten flesh. You don't want to go out, cut antlers off a deer and stick it straight into your dragon cage. Make sure there's no bacteria, anything like that. But yeah, I don't see a problem with using them for decorations. So this next question or comment, let's see. This is, what is that? Kara Shay? We're probably butchering some of these names. I think that's Kara Shay. If it's not, my apologies again. Anyway, y'all are funny. I hope she has a sense of humor if we just butchered her name. She said, well, we appreciate it. Really enjoyed your videos. I have a 3-year-old beardie, and she has whole personality. Exactly 1 year ago, She ran out my back door while hubby was babysitting for me. She was gone for 1 week before I found her in the road soaking up heat. I brought her across the country 2,100 miles with me on the dash of my car when I moved. She has never had an enclosure since I hung UVB lights randomly in my house, where she likes to hang out in front of the windows. She tells me when she needs to go out and potty if it is warm enough. I told you some of these people have dragons that talk to them. I told you. She says if not, she goes to the bathtub. She never poops in my floor and hasn't since she was a baby. I trained her early to the tub by listening to her when she would run around front of the enclosure like she wanted out, and that meant she needed to go potty. It worked. She is super spoiled and funny.
Well, you, my friend, have a very charismatic and well-trained dragon.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Hey, you know what, though? Seriously, my roommate, we did that video stereotype of reptile keepers, and we did the reptile hoarder. Well, I literally had a roommate one time that had a Chinese water dragon. He did the same thing with. He didn't have a cage for it. It literally lived on the top of the curtains, like in his living room. This thing would sleep up on top of the curtains, and if it saw, we lived in a swamp, so we had bugs in the house from time to time. This was in Florida, and if a bug crossed the floor, a cricket or a roach or anything, he would beam down the curtains and run across the floor and grab the roach or grab the cricket or whatever it was. He would eat it. He would shoot back up the curtains and get back up on his rod, and that's where he stayed. And that was the most amazing thing that, you can't teach them to do that. It's just something, but I thought that was really cool. So, listen, if it works for you, why fix it?
Yeah.
If your dragon does all that, hey.
I mean, my dragons are definitely not potty trained, but it must be nice having one. Actually, we did used to go to the reptile shows a lot. We had some friends that had a bearded dragon that they actually trained it to do the same thing. When they got back from work, they would open the cage. They would lay like one of those little doggy pad things on the ground. He would go poop on the pad and then go about his day, like go climb on the couch or something like that. So it was literally like having a dog.
See, I don't have the patience to train a dog to do that, much less a bearded dragon. The older you get, you could probably do that.
Train a dragon?
Yeah. You need to watch that movie.
Maybe.
How I Trained My Dragon. Ain't that a movie?
That's an actual dragon.
Hey, if it works for one, it may work for the other. All right, we got to move on. Kara, thank you for your comment. I'm glad you liked this video or you think we're funny. I hope after we possibly butchered your name, you still like this channel and think we're funny. Anyway, so let's go to, who is that? I.E. Goliath. Is that leg Goliath? I'm going to quit even trying.
He said, hello, can I know, is it okay if the only insect I feed are mealworms? Okay, so we've talked about a varied diet multiple times on this channel, so I think that it's okay to feed your dragons mealworms. I've done it for years, but I don't think it's the only protein source that they should consume.
Not at all.
I think they should also have superworms, crickets, roaches. I mean, we have a whole video on bearded dragon nutrition where we talk about each and every insect that they can have. So the more, the better, but you can feed them mealworms because a lot of people will kind of fight tooth and nail over that subject. It's kind of like bearded dragon substrate. It's one of those things that can get you kicked out of a bearded dragon Facebook group for sure. But I don't think there's any problems with it because the dragons we have behind me, the one in that cage right over there, is going on about 10 years old, and he grew up eating mealworms. So
from a baby.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I will say this: the one thing I would caution you about with mealworms, we caution people is don't overfeed mealworms,
and be very careful about the size of the mealworm too.
Yeah, keep the size appropriate. Which is the space between a dragon's eyes. You don't want to, in other words, if you have a little hatchling bearded dragon, you certainly don't want to be feeding him adult mealworms. We have had people do that before, and it's very, it's not good for their health. We tell all of our customers, do not do this. Make sure that the length of the mealworm is no longer than that distance from your dragon's right eye to his left eye. and don't overfeed as far as numbers. Think of mealworms in terms of like an additional protein. It's like bacon. It's good. Dragons love it, but it's not the healthiest thing for them. There are better sources of protein out there. I actually like dubia roaches. It's personally one of my favorite, as long as you don't overfeed the dubia roaches with a really, really high protein. If so, that can lend itself to gout. But, just make sure you're not feeding your roaches nothing but dry dog food. That's what a lot of people do. That's a bad idea. Give them some good leafy green vegetables and gut load them with that. Gut load them with some with a good product like our insect buffet, and you'll be fine. Dubia roaches, I think, are probably one of the best. Superworms are one of the most convenient, one of the easiest to take care of. So just think about variety. Think in terms of this. No one wants to sit down and eat fried chicken every night. That was a bad example. I could probably eat fried chicken every night.
We live in the South, so some people that are also living in the South watching this are like, bet.
All right, I got one. Nobody wants to eat meatloaf.
Yeah.
Every meal.
Let's go with that.
Or spaghetti. You want some variety. So, so variety. Get your dragon something additional for his taste buds. All right, let's move on. Who's this next one? Scales and Tails music video.
You skipped Rebecca.
I skipped. Let's go back and take care of Rebecca.
Poor Rebecca, man. Just neglect her. She said, I love you two together. You guys radiate such chill vibes, and I love your humor paired with actual informative content.
Oh,
well, thank you, Rebecca.
We skipped you. It's just because it's because I'm old and I don't see good no more.
To be honest, though, the letters on this computer are so tiny, even I'm like...
Hey, somebody sent me a comment on how to fix that, and I read it, and then I forgot what they said. Anyway, we'll read it again, and we'll fix it next time. So let's go to our next comment. This is what? Scales and Tails, music videos, miscellaneous goodies. He just couldn't select one name, could he?
He has a lot of hobbies.
I can't pick one. I'm on them all. It's like on that rodeo, get a man both.
Yep.
All right. What does this guy say? Or gal?
It says, it seems like the majority of dragon owners are hell-bent on the tube lighting. I use mercury vapor lights, and I have 3 very healthy girls. I recall you doing a video ago talking about my MV lights. I think it's MV...
mercury
UVB.
vapor.
Okay.
That wasn't us, though. We don't have a video on mercury
we
vapor
don't have
lights.
mercury vapor lights, but he said, do you still think they are just fine? I asked because I can't even join any beardy support groups without getting jumped all over and actually kicked out. Oh, that's funny. Someone else joined the Bearded Dragon Facebook group.
Yeah. I should love them.
It's my choice, and I shouldn't be judged for it. Just wanted to know what your opinion is now. I like them because they get what they need and can move if they get too warm. Plus, I am disabled, and it makes them affordable for me to keep. One more topic. I keep a container of water in each enclosure. I have taught all 3 to swim on command, which I could send you the video.
I wish you could send me that video, too.
I was about to say, yeah, send us the video on Instagram, Facebook. I'd like to see that.
Man, there's some unique dragon people out here.
I know.
Teach them how to poop. Teach them how to swim. I mean... We're slackers.
I know.
No, all our dragons know how to do is eat and poop.
Yeah, and lay eggs. I've got one in the egg box right down here. I just put her in here before the video.
Well, let's see what we could get into here. So, all right, it seems like majority of dragon owners are hell bent on tube light. That is true, and there's a reason for that. Years ago, the UVB lights, the little, I call them swirly bulbs, the little compact bulbs. Years ago, there were some problems with those. They were very poorly made. Some of the brands presented a fire hazard, and they also caused problems with the eyes of some bearded dragons. And so, 10 years ago, people were really concerned about those. They were worried about them. And so they got a bad reputation. Now, the technology of those bulbs today is not the same as it was back in yesteryear. So we actually use those bulbs. We don't have any problems with them, but we use a brand that we carry on our website. So go check out our website at coldbloodcreations.online. We have a UVB bulb that's not the tube style, and we feel like they are perfectly fine. We've not had an issue. We've been using them for a few years, and we think the quality of these bulbs is good. We only sell stuff that we're willing to use, and we think that brand is very good. That being said, the mercury vapor bulbs, I'm going to be honest with you, the video that you were talking about that we have was probably not us. That may have been someone else, because I am not terribly familiar with mercury vapor bulbs. Now, I do know what they are. I have seen them at pet stores. I can honestly tell you, I have never used them. One of the reasons is because, if I'm not mistaken, I think those mercury vapor bulbs usually are like 100 watts and higher. And because our facility is so warm, like our room right now, I'm about to sweat.
Yeah, it's warm in here because we have bearded dragons and pythons in here. So
yeah, so we don't need that hot a bulb. I mean, we can get by in our facility in the wintertime with a 60-watt bulb, in the summertime with a 40-watt bulb, simply because our air temperature in here is already so hot. So when it comes to mercury vapor, my man, I am sorry, but I am just frankly not the guy to ask. And I don't want to give you any false information, so I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to go ask that to someone's more experienced with those type of bulbs. Now, what else did he want to know here? I can't join a bearded
yeah, I was gonna talk about that. He said, where does it say?
You know we were going to talk about that.
I can't even join any beardy support groups without getting jumped all over. Honestly,
welcome to Facebook.
Yeah, welcome to Bearded Dragon Keeping 101. I think that just let alone the bedding that we keep our dragons on right now, feeding them mealworms, or even something like keeping 2 female dragons together, could probably get us kicked out of a Facebook group, even though we've been doing it for so many years. People are just, they get set in stone in their opinion, their ideas, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that I've learned is just through observation of working with the animals for so long. Of course, you know, you'll make mistakes, and, you know, you might change the way you do things over the years, but I don't know, something about those Bearded Dragon Facebook groups, they don't tolerate anything that goes against their opinions, beliefs, whatever. Unfortunately, but if you guys, you know, y'all can come follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We post videos and photos all the time of bearded dragons, and yeah, we'll try to educate you guys educate you guys as much as possible on like what we've learned the past couple of years. But yeah, I'm sorry you kind of get jumped on all the time, but we've been there too. This
is a common issue with Facebook. Yeah, the thing about Facebook is anybody can start a group. Yeah. And it's like, as soon as they get that group, it's like the Napoleon syndrome, or the, you know, I am king, I rule, you know, any opposing opinion or any questioning.
It sort of gives me flashbacks to high school friend groups.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to be part of our group.
And that's probably who's moderating most of these groups. See, the advantage to being my age is that we've lived long enough to see some things, experience some things, and then we hear stuff later on and we're just like, what? Like, bearded dragon keepers have been feeding mealworms for, I mean, like 30 years. I've known personally a lot of bearded dragon breeders. I've never known one that didn't use mealworms. You know, I'm talking like back in the 90s. And then all of a sudden, the internet comes along and I'm reading, you can't feed bearded dragons mealworms, because they'll get impacted and they'll die. And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah, mine didn't die.
No, I mean, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of breeders that keep dragons that I know that use didn't have that experience. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's one of those, it's like pine bedding with snakes. You know, people are like, you absolutely can't use pine bedding. Well, there was a time when all we had was pine bedding. We used it and we were fine. Now, all of a sudden, you can't use that stuff anymore, says someone who just got into the hobby last week and read it on Google, you know. So, listen, I don't want to come across, please understand this. We don't want to come across as being arrogant. We don't claim to even have the best way of doing things. What I do claim is that I've been working in reptiles for a very, very long time. I've had experience with a lot of different species. I've bred many different species. And in some way or another, I've made I've made mistakes. We've corrected them over the years. We've learned things. But I'm 51 years old. I'm still learning things. And
it's like there's several different types of bedding, for example, that I've never used in my dragon cages before, that some people would probably tell you to never use. But then someone might come along and say, well, I've been using it for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kick you out of my Facebook group. I don't have one, but I wouldn't, because you never know.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the joy of Facebook. Like I said, it gives a voice to everyone. It also gives, power and control. And some of those group moderators let that go to their head. I wouldn't take it personal. I just, there's one particular Facebook group moderator that just loves me to death.
Who?
Oh, I don't want to call her name. I don't want to be ugly. But there was a young lady that got very, very upset with me. She was a moderator of a Facebook group. And she got upset with me because we said we don't sprinkle calcium on our crickets before we feed them to,
that girl.
And she just got so mad. We said, look, we think gut loading with our insect buffet is sufficient. And she was like, it's like, I don't know. I imagine her little head just probably exploded. She got so upset with me because of that. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I wonder how this idiot thinks that crickets and bugs out in the wild in Australia, who goes around sprinkling calcium on them insects? The way those dragons get nutrients is from eating those insects and whatever's in the gut of those insects, hint gut loading. So the way we do things is the most natural way. But to this young lady, it almost gave her an aneurysm. She is the only person to ever give us a negative review on Facebook, by the way. And that's why she did it, because I guess in her 22 years.
And she also had her own product that she was trying to sell too.
Well, that didn't help.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
She was pushing her own product as well. So anyway, hey guys, thank y'all so much for watching this. And once again, happy Mother's Day to you moms out there. And our hats off to you. Hey, there ain't nothing in the world like a good mom. And so got anything you want to say?
Well, we hope y'all enjoyed this video, and we will be back next week with another question and answer. So, y'all have a good day.
See if I can click out of this thing like I'm supposed to this time.